My name is Claire, and I am 39 years old. I am sitting at a long white table in the private dining room of an expensive Italian restaurant. It is my father's 75th birthday, and my sister Emily has planned every detail. Everyone is laughing, sipping wine, and pretending to be something we are not a happy family. When the dessert plates are cleared, the server brings the bill. My father does not even glance at it. He slides it toward me and says without looking up, "You cannot sit at this table for free." There is silence, then a soft laugh from my mother, a smirk from my sister, and that same old pressure rises in my chest, the one I have felt since I was a child. The one that says, you are only useful if you are paying for something. But this time, I do not swallow it. I reach into my purse not for my wallet, but for the envelope I had prepared. Inside it is the document that will end everything. They do not know it yet, but I already paid the bill. And I am about to walk out with the owner. My name is Claire. And for most of my life, I was the good daughter. I did not scream. I did not argue. I did not disobey. I followed the rules and kept my voice low. While other kids rebelled in their teenage years, I stayed home, helped my mother with the dishes, and typed up my father's reports when he brought work home from the office. He never thanked me. But I kept doing it. My older sister, Emily, was the star, blonde, confident, and loud. She had a gift for making everything about her. When we were children, she would break something and then point to me. I would get in trouble. She would smile. That was our rhythm when she turned 16. My parents threw her a big garden party. She wore a white dress and cried when she saw the brand new car in the driveway. I turned 16 2 years later. I got a used bicycle and a homemade cake. My mother said, "You are not the type of girl who needs a car. You stay close to home."
They
said I was sensible, practical, not flashy. At the time, I believed it was a compliment. Now I know it was a cage. After college, Emily went to law school. I started a small business building websites for local shops. At first, it was just a few clients, a bakery, a tailor, a woman who sold handmade candles. I worked from my bedroom, at a folding table with my old college laptop. No one took it seriously. My father said, "You are just playing with code." My mother asked, "When are you going to get a real job?" Emily, of course, was celebrated. She got a job at a corporate law firm downtown. My parents threw a party. I baked cupcakes for it. Even then, I did not complain. I told myself I was different. I did not need applause. I just needed space to grow. I stayed quiet when my parents called me for tech support every other week. When their phones stopped working, I helped. When they needed a new Wi-Fi setup, I came. I paid for their streaming services. I replaced their printer twice. Each time, I told myself maybe now they will see what I do. They never did. At family dinners, they would ask Emily about her clients, her office, her salary. Then my mother would turn to me and ask, "Are you still doing that computer thing?" Yes, I was still doing that computer thing. And I was getting very good at it. By 30, I had 10 full-time clients. By 32, I had built my own digital agency. I hired 2 assistants. I moved out of my 1-bedroom apartment and into a loft space I had designed myself. Brick walls, skylights, peace, but I did not tell them. I kept my success quiet. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was habit, or maybe I was still waiting for them to notice on their own. For them to say, "Claire, we are proud of you." It never came. Emily got married at a vineyard in Napa. My parents paid for most of it. I made her wedding website, managed the guest list, and designed all the digital invitations. No one said thank you. At the reception, my father gave a speech.
He said, "I always knew Emily would go far."
She's the kind of woman who gets things done. I smiled. I raised my glass. I swallowed the pain. After the wedding, my parents began to talk about retirement. They asked Emily for legal advice. They talked to her husband about finances. They did not ask me anything. I was just the one who played with computers, but I knew the truth. I had grown something real. My business was bringing in steady income. I had investments. I had savings. I had helped several of my clients triple their revenue. And I had recently bought a small building, a property downtown that I had turned into a co-working space. Still, I said nothing. I visited on holidays. I brought gifts. I smiled through conversations that erased me. I was the good daughter, until the night everything changed. But before that night, there was one moment that stayed with me. A small moment, but it felt like a crack in the surface. It was a Sunday. Lunch. My mother was serving soup. My father looked up and said, "Emily says you do websites. That's still a thing?" I said, "Yes, it is doing well." He blinked. "Strange how people will pay for something you can do on your own." I said nothing. I spooned my soup. I felt Emily's eyes on me. I knew that look. It was the look she gave right before she tried to cut me down. She said, "Well, not everyone wants to do things alone, Claire. Some people want professionals." "Like lawyers," I nodded. "Yes, and some people want professionals to help them grow online," my father chuckled. "You are always so sensitive." That was it, a short moment. But I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the first time I pushed back, quietly, firmly. They did not see it, but something inside me shifted. I felt it like a slow burn, like a fire waiting to rise. I was done. Waiting for recognition. And soon they would see exactly who I had become. My story did not begin with that birthday dinner or that lunch. It began many years ago. In smaller moments that shaped the way I saw myself. I remember one Christmas when I was 10 years old. I had saved up my allowance for months and bought my father a leather keychain. It had his initials on it, engraved in gold. I was so proud of it. I had wrapped it myself, tied a bow, and placed it under the tree. Christmas morning, we opened presents in the living room. Emily got a giant dollhouse, a new coat, and a camera. My mother beamed at her. My father took pictures of her unwrapping every gift. When I handed him my little box, he looked confused. He opened it, turned the keychain over in his hand, and said, "Oh, thanks." That was all. He placed it on the table and moved on to Emily's next gift. He never used that keychain. Later that evening, I found it in the trash. That was the first time I felt it, this strange ache in my chest. Like I had taken up space I was not supposed to fill. Another memory comes from my high school graduation. I had worked so hard. I was not the smartest in class, but I had earned honors in computer science and helped build the school's first website. My teacher called me a quiet leader. I was proud of that. My name was even in the program under most innovative student. But when the ceremony ended and we gathered outside for photos, my parents were already talking to Emily. She had just finished her first year at university and had come home for the event. My mother was telling everyone how Emily had made the dean's list. My father was talking about how law school was right around the corner. I stood there holding my diploma. No one asked to take a photo with me. That night I cried into my pillow. I told myself it was fine, that I did not need a spotlight, that I would work quietly, and one day they would notice. They never did. Even small family moments turned into reminders of where I stood. There was a Thanksgiving when I offered to host. I had just moved into my new apartment and wanted to show them I was capable. I spent days cleaning, decorating, and planning the menu. I even printed little name cards for the table. Emily arrived an hour late and brought a fancy dessert from a bakery. My mother tasted it and said, "This is delicious. Claire, why do you not do something like this for a living?" I laughed softly. "I built a website last month for a bakery that won an award." She blinked. "Oh, I meant something people can taste." Again, that ache, that dull weight behind my ribs. Like my efforts were invisible because they could not be held in someone's hand. There was the time I offered to take our family Christmas photo. I had bought a professional camera and learned editing. I posed them beautifully in front of the fireplace, even made matching sweaters for everyone with their names printed across the chest. When I showed them the photos, my father said, "We look stiff." Emily said, "We should have just hired someone." Later, I saw the photo they used on their Christmas card. It was a selfie Emily had taken at a restaurant the week before. In those moments, I told myself they did not mean to hurt me. That they just did not understand what I did. That maybe I needed to try harder, be better. Be louder. But the truth is, they liked me quiet. They liked me small. I was easier to ignore that way. They praised Emily because she demanded it. She claimed space with her voice, with her presence. She was never afraid to interrupt, to correct, to take credit. I admired her sometimes. I even envied her, but I was not built that way. I thought being humble would earn me love. I thought being useful would earn me respect. I was wrong, once, during a family barbecue. My uncle asked Emily about her career. She explained a case she had worked on and everyone clapped. Then he turned to me and asked what I did. Before I could answer, my father spoke up and said, "Oh, Claire helps people with their emails or something like that. She is good with gadgets." I felt my stomach turn. I had just signed a contract to lead a full digital campaign for a nonprofit organization, but I said nothing. I smiled because that is what I had learned to do, smile even when it hurt. These moments on their own may seem small, but stacked together they form a story of a daughter who was taught to be quiet, who was told her success did not count unless it looked like someone else's, who learned that praise was reserved for louder voices and shinier titles. And somewhere along the way, I started to believe it. I started to doubt myself even when my bank account was growing, even when clients were thanking me with tears in their eyes for helping them save their businesses. I still wondered, why does it not feel like enough? It took years for me to realize that the problem was not my work. It was the frame they forced me into. They needed me to stay small so Emily could stay big. And I had allowed it for far too long, but something was changing inside me, and soon I would stop fitting into the role they had written for me. The truth is, I did not plan to keep my success a secret. It simply happened that way. In the beginning, I shared everything. I sent family group messages when I signed a new client or redesigned a brand. I posted small wins on social media like reaching 1,000 website visits in a day or helping a small bookstore triple its online sales. I hoped they would notice. I hoped someone would say, "Wow, Claire, this is impressive." Instead, I got silence, or worse, sarcasm. Emily once replied, "Let us know when you start building something real." So I stopped sharing. I stopped explaining my work. I stopped trying to translate my wins into something they would understand. I put my head down and built my own world. A world that did not need their approval. It started with a handful of clients, then referrals. Then I was working 12-hour days and managing a waiting list. I had no office, only my small desk and laptop, but I had built something solid. My clients were loyal. They paid on time. They recommended me to others. One of my biggest breakthroughs came from a florist named Rachel. She had a tiny shop on the edge of town and was about to close. I built her a website, set up online ordering, and started running small ad campaigns. Within 6 months, she was shipping bouquets statewide. She cried when she handed me the check. She said, "You saved my business." I did not tell anyone in my family. It was not long before I hired my first assistant, Monica. She was bright, creative, and full of energy. Together, we started to scale up. We offered full branding packages, SEO consulting, and online storefronts. I turned clients away every month because I could not keep up. So I made the biggest decision of my life. I bought a building. It was not fancy. It was an old 2-story unit downtown that used to be a hardware store. The windows were dusty and cracked. The floors creaked. But I saw potential. I took a loan. I used my savings. I spent months renovating. I worked with local artists to design the interior. I added natural lighting, plants, open desks, a soundproof meeting room, and even a small cafe bar for my team. And when it was done, I named it The Nest, because I had built it with care, piece by piece, and it was finally ready to hold others. From the outside, it looked like a co-working space. But inside, it was something more. It was freedom. It was proof. It was the life I had built without anyone's help. I still did not tell my family. It is strange how success can feel private when you are used to being dismissed. I knew that if I brought them there, they would not see it. My mother would point out the cracks in the floor. My father would ask how I paid for it. Emily would act bored. So I stayed quiet. I bought myself a small car, nothing flashy, just something reliable. I updated my wardrobe. I moved into a new apartment with wide windows and quiet mornings. I even started therapy. My therapist asked, "Why do you keep your accomplishments a secret?" I said, "Because they do not care." She said, "But you do." That stayed with me. At 36, I opened a second location, smaller but in a better neighborhood. I hired a full-time designer and a part-time copywriter. We served clients from all over the country. And we did it with heart. I kept track of everything, every receipt, every contract, every dollar I had spent on my parents over the years: subscriptions, tech support, food, rides, repairs. Not because I wanted to throw it in their faces, but because I had learned the hard way that people forget what they take from quiet women. I made copies of deeds. I saved messages. I had backup accounts. I built digital walls around everything I loved. It was not paranoia. It was preparation, because somewhere inside me, I knew it was coming. The moment when they would finally see me, not with pride, but with hunger. The moment they would realize I was no longer the poor little web girl they could ignore, that I was, in fact, powerful, that I had something they wanted. And when that moment came, I would be ready. One afternoon, I sat at my desk at the Nest, sipping coffee and reviewing contracts. The sun came through the big windows. Music played softly in the background. Monica was laughing in the next room. For the first time in years, I felt peace. I whispered to myself, "They do not know what I have built." And I smiled. It was not revenge I wanted. It was not glory. I just wanted space to breathe, to be seen for who I truly was. But if they refused to see me, then I would protect myself. With paperwork, with preparation, with power. I had become the kind of woman who no longer needed a seat at someone else's table, because I had built my own, and I would never, ever give it away. The invitation arrived in the family group chat like a flash of lightning across a clear sky. Dad's 75th birthday dinner, Saturday at 7 p.m., La Fontana private room, formal attire. It was sent by Emily. No question, no poll, no discussion. Just a directive, like always. I stared at the message for a long time before I responded. I typed, "Sounds good," and left it at that. I could feel the knot forming in my stomach already. La Fontana was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. The kind of place with white tablecloths, valet parking, and waiters who called, "You, madam and sir." I had passed by it often. I had even built the website for one of its suppliers. But I had never eaten there myself. My parents had always talked about going, but never did. I wondered if Emily was paying for it. Or if they all assumed I would. I pushed the thought away and focused on my breathing. One breath in, one breath out. I had survived worse. Still, the days leading up to the dinner were heavy. Old memories started to rise again, like dust shaken loose from a closed attic. I found myself staying late at the Nest, even when there was no work to do. I reorganized files, cleaned drawers, answered emails twice. Anything to avoid thinking, but the thought still came. What if they embarrassed me again? What if Emily made one of her cutting comments in front of everyone? What if they treated me like a child, like I had built nothing, done nothing, become nothing? I told myself it was only a few hours. I could sit, smile, eat, and leave. No one could take away what I had built. Not anymore. Still, I prepared. Not just emotionally, but practically. I chose a black dress. Elegant, simple, and professional. I got my hair done, had my nails shaped, and wore the small gold earrings I had bought for myself the day I opened my second office. They were my quiet reminder. I had done this on my own. The night of the dinner, I arrived 5 minutes early. I like being early. It gives me time to observe the room, find a quiet seat, and breathe. The hostess greeted me with a polite smile and led me to the private room. It was beautiful, dim lighting, fresh flowers, and a long polished table with 12 high-backed chairs. A printed menu with my father's name on it sat at every place setting. Emily was already there, laughing with her husband. She wore a designer dress and carried a purse that cost more than my monthly rent when I was 25. "Claire," she said with false brightness, "you look professional." I smiled politely. "Thank you." You look well. My parents arrived next. My mother gave me a light kiss on the cheek. My father nodded. You are early, he said. I like to be. I replied. I took a seat near the middle of the table, not at the head but not at the end either. As the rest of the guests trickled in, family friends, cousins, a couple of neighbors, I felt the familiar weight settle on my shoulders. The sense that I did not belong, even in a room I had been invited to. Conversations flowed around me. Most of them centered on Emily. She just closed a huge case. One guest whispered, she always lands on her feet. Another added, my father glowed with pride. He lifted his wine glass and said, she is our golden girl. I looked down at my water glass and took a slow sip. Dinner was served. It was delicious, 4 courses of delicate flavors and flawless presentation. People made toasts. My mother thanked everyone for coming. Emily thanked the restaurant for the VIP treatment. My father stood and made a long speech about family, legacy, and hard work. He never said my name. When dessert arrived, I took a bite of the soft tiramisu and reminded myself to stay calm. I was almost done, almost through it. Just a few more minutes, then it happened. The waiter arrived with the bill. Neatly folded in a leather booklet. My father glanced at it, then looked at me. You cannot sit at this table for free, he said, not loud, not soft. Just loud enough for the entire table to hear. There was a pause. A few people laughed. My mother smiled and looked away. Emily sipped her wine, eyes gleaming. The waiter stood awkwardly beside me. Holding the booklet, I reached for my purse, not for my wallet, but for something else, because what none of them knew, what no one in that room knew, was that I had already planned for this. I had already paid the bill in more ways than one, but I was not going to tell them just yet. I placed the envelope in my lap and looked around the table. I saw smug smiles, false politeness, and a complete lack of understanding. They still thought I was the same girl who needed to prove herself. They had no idea who they were sitting with. And very soon, they would find out. I should have left that night. When my father handed me the bill and made that comment, I should have stood up, placed the envelope on the table, and walked out. But I did not. I stayed. I swallowed the lump in my throat and reached for my wallet. I told myself it was easier to avoid the scene, but the real betrayal had not happened yet. It came 3 days later. Wrapped in calm voices and empty smiles. It began with a phone call from my mother. Claire, darling, she said sweetly. Can you come by the house this weekend? Your father and I want to discuss something important. Her voice was pleasant, too pleasant. I hesitated, then agreed. I arrived Saturday morning with a box of pastries. Habit, I suppose. Even when I felt pushed aside, I still brought gifts. The front door was already open when I arrived, and Emily was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. Oh, I said. You are here too, she smirked. Of course. This involves both of us. My father entered the room holding a thick folder. Sit down, he said, nodding toward the chair across from him. I sat slowly. I felt the air tighten. We are finalizing our estate plan, he said. The house, the assets, the accounts. We want to make sure things are organized properly. You understand? I nodded, even though something inside me was already shifting. We have decided, he continued, to transfer the house to Emily's name now, while we are still alive. That way there is no confusion later. My stomach dropped. The house? I asked. You are giving it to Emily? My mother chimed in. It just makes sense. She has a family. She is stable. You have always said you do not need much. I stared at them. That house was supposed to be shared. Emily leaned forward. You do not even like the house. You said it was too noisy when we were growing up. That does not mean I do not have a right to it. My father waved his hand. You are being dramatic. We are simplifying things. It is a tax decision. No, I said quietly. This is not about taxes. This is about you thinking I do not matter. Silence. Then my mother said, Claire, please do not make this difficult. You have your little company, your apartment. You do not need this. My little company. My hands were shaking under the table. I placed them in my lap to steady them. I looked at Emily. She was smiling. Of course she was. I turned to my father. Do you even know what I do for a living? He frowned. You build websites. I laughed once, sharp and bitter. I own two buildings. I run a full agency. I employ people. I help businesses stay alive. I pay for everything you have ever asked for without complaint. He blinked, surprised. And you think I am the one who cannot handle a house? Emily said, It is not about what you can handle. It is about what is fair. You do not have children. You do not have a husband. You do not have anyone depending on you. I looked at her. That does not make me less. That makes me free. My father opened the folder. The papers are already drawn up. We just need your signature here. I stared at the line he pointed to. You want me to sign away my inheritance? It is not an inheritance. It is a gift to Emily. You are not going to live here anyway. I stood up slowly, and I realized something in that moment. Something that changed me. This was not a conversation. This was a trap. They had already made the decision. They were just performing politeness, pretending to offer me a choice I was never meant to take. They had underestimated me so completely that they believed I would say yes. That I would smile, sign, and thank them. But I was not that girl anymore. I looked at the folder. Then at my father. No, he blinked. No, I met his eyes. No, I will not sign that. And you will not steal from me under the guise of family, my mother gasped softly. Emily rolled her eyes. Claire, do not be ridiculous, she said. You are acting like a victim. I turned to her. You think you deserve everything just because they never told you no. But you are not the only child in this family. My father's voice grew louder. We have done everything for you. I laughed. Everything? You mean ignoring my work? Laughing at my success? Treating me like a spare part while you handed Emily the spotlight again and again? They said nothing. I am not signing. I repeated. And if you try to move forward with this, you will regret it, my father scowled. You would take your own family to court, if that is what it takes? I turned to walk out. Emily's voice followed me. You are overreacting. We are family. You owe us. I stopped at the door. No, I said without turning around. I owed you kindness and I gave it, but you took advantage. Now I owe myself something more. I left the house with shaking hands, but they were not shaking from fear. They were shaking with clarity. The betrayal had come. But it would not break me. It would build the wall that finally kept me safe. I did not sleep that night. I lay awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling, my chest full of heat and my hands still trembling from the confrontation. My phone buzzed every hour. Calls from my mother, messages from Emily, even a voicemail from my father. I did not answer any of them. The next morning, I opened my laptop and began reviewing every document I had on file. Property deeds, receipts, email confirmations, transfer records, everything I had kept quietly over the years. I had built my agency carefully, but I had also built something else, evidence. For the first time, I was glad I had always been meticulous. They thought I was soft because I stayed silent. They thought my boundaries were weakness. But they had never asked what I had been building behind the scenes. By noon, the messages changed tone. Emily sent a text. You really are blowing this out of proportion. It is just a house. Then my mother, Claire, be reasonable. You are not married. You have no children. Your sister's family needs the space more. Then my father, short and cold. This is not how a grateful daughter behaves. Grateful. Grateful for what? I stared at that word for a long time, then closed my phone and sat in silence. They truly believed I owed them something. I remembered every ride I gave them to doctor appointments. Every weekend I spent fixing their internet. Every holiday I hosted when no one else would. The birthday gifts, the quiet checks I wrote when my mother's credit card bounced, the months I paid their gas bill without a single thank you, and now they wanted more. Now they wanted the house, not just the house, but my silence. My consent. My signature tied up with a neat ribbon of guilt. They wanted me to believe I was selfish for protecting what was mine. That night, Emily called again. I let it go too. Voicemail, but I listened. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. Claire, I just do not understand where all this anger is coming from. We are family. Families make sacrifices. You do not even want the house. You never did. But Dad and Mom are getting older. They do not need this kind of stress. Honestly, I think you are just lashing out because you are lonely. Double quotes lonely. I sat up straight. My jaw clenched. They always knew what to say to dig the blade a little deeper. My mother called a few minutes later. I picked up this time, Claire. Sweetheart, she said. I know you are upset, but please think about this rationally. The house has always been more important to Emily. You are more independent. You will be fine. I took a deep breath. That is exactly the problem, Mom. You think because I'm fine, I should be silent. You think because I do not complain, I do not hurt. Her voice sharpened. Do not twist this. We are doing what is best for the family. No, I said. Calmly, you are doing what is easiest. And you expect me to absorb the cost like always. We raised you, she said quickly. We fed you, clothed you. How dare you act like we owe you? I was silent for a long moment. Then I said, I'm not asking for anything. I am just not giving you more, she huffed. You used to be kind. I used to be quiet. I corrected. There is a difference. I hung up the phone. The next day, they sent an email from a lawyer, one I had never heard of. It was worded politely, but the message was clear. They were moving forward with the transfer of the house. And if I did not cooperate, they would proceed without my blessing. They were daring me to fight. What they did not know was that I was already prepared. I sent my own email to my attorney. I attached documents, records, messages. I explained everything. She replied within the hour. You have a strong case. They cannot do this without your consent. Let us schedule a formal response. And then I did something I had never done before. I wrote a letter, a real one. Printed, folded, and mailed. One copy to my parents. One to Emily. In it, I explained exactly what I had contributed over the years, in money, in labor, in love. I listed the support I had given, every dollar, every hour, every favor. And then I wrote one sentence that changed everything. I will no longer give to people who see me only as a resource. From this moment forward, our relationship will be based on mutual respect, or it will not exist at all. They did not respond. For 3 days, silence. Then Emily messaged me. You are really going to destroy this family over some ego trip? I replied with only 2 words, not anymore.
It was never about ego. It was about dignity.
It was about standing up and saying, no more shrinking, no more pleasing, no more debts that I never agreed to. I did not owe them. If anything, they owed me. They owed me years of recognition, of respect, of love not given only when convenient. But I was not waiting for it anymore. Because when you stop letting people they call it betrayal, but really it is just self-respect. There is a moment small, silent, when something inside you simply shifts, not with fire, not with shouting, but with stillness. It is the moment you stop asking, stop hoping, stop waiting for someone to finally see you. For me, that moment came on a quiet Wednesday afternoon. I was sitting alone in my office at the Nest. My team was out for lunch. Sunlight poured in through the high windows, casting soft shadows across my desk. Everything around me was peaceful, but inside my chest, a storm had settled into still resolve. That morning, I had received another email from Emily. This time, it was not passive-aggressive. This time, it was direct, subject line, last warning. The message was short. We are giving you one last chance to do the right thing. If you refuse, do not expect to be included in this family moving forward. Consider this your choice. My choice. As if they were offering me 2 paths, one with them and one without. As if they had forgotten that I had walked every path with them for years, and each one led to a locked door, a turned back, or an empty room where my voice echoed unheard. I read the message 3 times. Then I closed the laptop, folded my hands in my lap, and sat still. This was the moment, not a meltdown. Not a cry. Not a scream. It was a snap, not the loud kind that breaks the world, but the soft kind that breaks an illusion. I had spent my life trying to prove my worth to people who decided long ago that I had none. I was done. Hurt, not angry. Done. I thought of all the things I had accepted over the years, the birthdays forgotten, The dinners where I paid and they never said thank you. The conversations where my name was barely mentioned, and if it was spoken like an afterthought. The jokes at my expense. The subtle comments about how I lived so small and so quiet, as if quiet living meant failed living. And worst of all, the belief they had planted in me that I was lucky they included me at all. I had built a life. A full, beautiful, vibrant life. I had built something from nothing. But they had only ever seen me as someone who could be useful, never someone who could be powerful. Until now. I stood up, walked to the mirror across the room, and looked at myself. Not the version of me they saw, not the younger sister, not the good daughter, not the tech girl with no husband, no kids, no real responsibilities. No, I saw a woman who had survived disrespect and grown something they could never touch. I saw me, and she was done being small. Later that evening, I wrote down a list of everything I needed to do, not emotionally, logistically. It was time to take action. Step 1. Secure everything. I called my attorney. We went over every legal document I had. She confirmed I had full rights to my business, my property, my financial records. Together we prepared legal notices to protect the nest and my secondary location from any claim or interference. Step 2. Cut all unnecessary ties. I removed my parents from any shared subscriptions I was still paying for. I contacted the utility company and informed them that I would no longer be covering their gas or water bills. I made a list of every financial connection and severed them one by one. Step 3. Set clear boundaries. I drafted a letter not emotional but firm. In it, I made it clear. From this day forward, no communication would be answered unless it came with respect and honesty. No legal documents would be signed under pressure. No conversations would be entertained unless all parties acknowledged the harm they had caused. Step 4. Prepare for backlash. I knew it was coming. They would say I was cruel, cold, selfish, ungrateful, but I also knew something else. Every strong woman is called those things the moment she stops giving without return. I was not afraid because something inside me had changed, and that change could not be undone. That night, I made tea and sat on my balcony. The sky was clear. The city lights sparkled. I could hear faint music from a nearby apartment. And for the first time in weeks, I felt no fear, the loneliness they used to warn me about. It was not real. What was lonely was being surrounded by people who never saw me. What was lonely was shrinking myself to fit their image of who I should be. Now, I was alone, but I was free. And freedom, it turns out, is not loud. It is quiet. It is calm. It is sitting with yourself and knowing you need nothing more than the truth. My phone buzzed again. Emily. Again, I did not open it. I turned it over and sipped my tea. Let them talk. Let them rage. Let them call it betrayal. I would call it peace. Peace is powerful. But peace without protection is temporary. The morning after I made my decision, I put on a clean white blouse, tied my hair back, and walked into the nest like a woman on a mission, not a victim, not a bystander. A businesswoman. A daughter no longer waiting for validation. Monica noticed it first. She looked up from her desk, eyes widening slightly. You look resolved, she said. I am, I replied. I stepped into my office, closed the door behind me, and got to work. The first thing I did was print the email Emily had sent me, the one titled Last Warning. Then I printed every message, every screenshot, every voicemail transcript, and clipped them into a thick folder labeled Family Correspondence -2025. Next, I drafted a formal cease and desist letter. It was not dramatic. It was factual, professional, and legally sound. It stated in clear terms that any attempts to coerce or pressure me into surrendering assets or rights would be treated as harassment. I had it notarized the same day and mailed copies to my parents, Emily, and their lawyer. No more games. Then, I called my financial advisor and explained the situation.
He was shocked but not surprised. I have seen this happen, he said. Quiet earners become the family scapegoat.
But when the quiet ones bite back, they bite hard. We froze all joint accounts I had ever opened with them. Old emergency funds, credit card backups, anything they might still have access to. I changed passwords. I added two-step verifications. I created backups in encrypted storage. Then came the property. The house, my childhood home, was still in my parents' name. But I had discovered something important after reviewing old documents. When my father had refinanced the mortgage 5 years ago, I had co-signed to help his approval. I had forgotten. But my name was still on the agreement. That changed everything. I called my lawyer and explained the connection. She pulled the documents, cross-checked signatures, and confirmed it. I had legal standing. They could not transfer the house without my approval. If they tried, they would trigger a dispute that could hold up the deed in court for years. I signed a legal notice of intent to contest any attempted transfer and had it delivered to their lawyer's office by courier the next day. The phone calls started that evening. First, my mother, Claire, she said, her voice tight. What is this letter? What are you doing? I am protecting myself, I said evenly. You are threatening us. No, I am setting boundaries. That is not the same thing. She sighed dramatically. We are your parents. Yes, I said. And I have spent my life respecting you. Now I am asking for the same in return. She hung up. Then Emily tried. She called 3 times in a row. I finally picked up on the 4th. I cannot believe. You are making this public, she hissed. You are turning a family disagreement into a legal battle. You made it a legal matter the moment you tried to push through paperwork without my consent, I said. Do not twist it. She laughed bitterly. You are insane. No, I said calmly. I am informed, and that scares you. I'm not scared of you. Yes, you are, I said. Because I stopped playing along. The line went quiet. Then she said something that told me everything I needed to know. You were supposed to be the easy one. I almost thanked her for the honesty. Instead, I said, I was. Now I am the prepared one. I hung up and blocked her number. I thought I would feel nervous. Instead, I felt clean, like I had finally peeled away something rotten that had been stuck to me for years. Over the next few days, the calls stopped. But the consequences started. Rolling in, I received an email from their lawyer again, this time much more carefully worded. Our clients would prefer to resolve this matter privately and amicably. Please advise your terms for a family resolution. I responded through my attorney. All decisions regarding family assets must be paused until an independent financial mediator reviews contributions, intentions, and legal entitlements. Number. Signatures, no pressure, no assumptions. They had backed themselves into a corner. And for once, I was not the one being cornered. Meanwhile, life at the Nest continued as usual. My team thrived. Clients stayed loyal. We launched a new campaign for a wellness brand and helped a struggling bakery go viral with a charity promotion. Business was good, and I was better than good. I was strong. One night, after wrapping up work late, I stood outside my office and looked up at the glowing sign that read, The Nest. I remembered when I had first seen the building, worn and half abandoned. I remembered walking through it, seeing dust in the sunlight, peeling paint, cracked tiles, and still believing in its potential because I knew what it could become. That was me, that building, that space, that forgotten structure no one else believed in, and now it was full of life, success, and purpose because someone chose to build. Even when no one was watching, that someone was me. And now, for the first time in my life, I was watching too. The fallout was swift and, in many ways, inevitable. Once I had taken decisive action, locking down accounts, sending legal notices, cutting financial ties, the family's world began to crumble in small but unmistakable ways. What had been their comfortable, entitled lifestyle suddenly faced obstacles they had not expected. Within days, my parents started calling me more often. Their voices were strained, even pleading. Claire, please, my mother said one evening. Can we talk? We miss you, I answered calmly. I am listening. But the truth was, I had stopped listening to empty apologies. A few days later, I received a call from my father's bank. You need to update your information or your accounts will be frozen, the clerk said. Confused, I checked the shared accounts I had co-signed years ago. They were indeed frozen. I realized my action to secure the finances had directly affected them. My heart tightened. But only briefly. They had made their choices. Then came Emily's frantic texts. Why are you doing this? We are family. You do not have to be like this. You are ruining everything. We could have solved this quietly. I did not respond. Their world was unraveling, and they blamed me. One evening, I received a message from my father's lawyer. If this dispute is not resolved soon, your parents will be forced to take legal action to protect their interests. I forwarded the message to my attorney and asked for advice. She replied, prepare for escalation, but stay firm. You have rights, and you have done nothing wrong. The next day, Emily called again. Her voice was sharp and urgent. You do not understand what you are risking. This is not just about a house or money. You are tearing this family apart. I said softly, you did that long ago. There was silence, then a harsh laugh. You think you are strong? We will see how strong you are when no one stands with you. I closed my eyes. They had always told me that I was alone, that I was small, that I was replaceable, but I was not. Because in the weeks that followed, something unexpected happened. My phone started ringing with calls from old friends, clients, even strangers, people I had helped quietly over the years. They sent messages of support. You deserve better. Thank you for sharing your story. Keep standing strong. One friend sent flowers with a note. For the woman who built everything on her own terms. Their kindness reminded me that family is not just blood. It is also those who see you, respect you, and stand by you. Meanwhile, the family drama continued. My parents' credit cards were declined during a shopping trip. My mother called me, embarrassed, asking if I could help. I did not. I told her, you made your choices. I am no longer responsible. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. At the same time, I heard whispers from distant relatives. Rumors that I was greedy, vindictive, destroying the family name. I let them talk. I had already learned that trying to explain yourself to people who do not want to understand is like shouting into the wind. Instead, I focused on my work, my team, my life, and slowly the storm outside grew quieter. One afternoon, Monica sat beside me at the nest and said, I heard what happened. I want you to know, you are not alone. I smiled, grateful. Thank you. That means more than you know. The consequences had been difficult, yes, but they were also necessary because sometimes you have to break a family to save yourself. And sometimes the price of freedom is high. But freedom tastes sweeter than any apology. The days after the fallout felt like walking through a fog. The silence from my family was heavy, but there was something else, a quiet strength growing inside me. I was not alone. Not really. It came in the form of Sarah. Sarah had been my closest friend since college. We met in a design class, both shy and passionate about technology. Over the years, she became more than a friend. She was a mentor, a confidant, and a rock when everything else felt shaky. When I finally told Sarah about what had happened with my family, I expected silence or gentle sympathy. Instead, she listened. Really listened. And then she said something I will never forget. Claire, you did the right thing. You are not responsible for their happiness or their choices. You are responsible for yourself. Those words echoed in my mind for days. Sarah was not just kind. She was wise. She had built a successful consulting firm and understood the power of setting boundaries and standing firm. She came to the nest one evening after work. We sat in the quiet office, the only light coming from the city beyond the windows. I want you to know, she said, that you are worthy of respect. And you deserve people who celebrate you, not tear you down. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I smiled. Thank you. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small book. I wrote this for you, she said. It is about resilience.
About
reclaiming your power. I thought you might find it helpful. I took the book gently and opened it. The pages were filled with notes, exercises, and stories of women who had faced challenges similar to mine. It was the first gift I had received in a long time that felt truly meaningful. Sarah stayed late that night, helping me draft responses to the latest messages from my parents' lawyer. She encouraged me to stay firm but calm, to focus on facts, not emotions. Her support was steady, unwavering, over the next few weeks. Sarah helped me build a plan, not just for the legal battle, but for my own well-being. She suggested therapy, meditation, and even yoga classes. "You cannot fight this alone," she said. "You need strength inside and out." I followed her advice. Slowly, I began to heal. Sarah also introduced me to her network of women entrepreneurs. I attended small gatherings and workshops, where people shared stories of overcoming hardship and reclaiming their lives. For the first time, I felt like I was part of a community that understood me. One afternoon, Sarah called me excitedly. "Claire, there is an opportunity to speak at a women's leadership conference next month. They want your story." I hesitated. Public speaking had never been my strength, but Sarah's encouragement was gentle. "You have something powerful to say. Your experience could help others." I agreed. The day of the conference, I stood backstage, heart pounding. When I stepped into the spotlight, I saw faces filled with curiosity and kindness. I spoke about my journey, the betrayal, the fight, the strength to say no. I shared the lessons I had learned, that family is not just blood, but respect and love. That setting boundaries is not selfish, but necessary. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. Women came up to me afterward, sharing their own stories. One said, "I left my toxic family last year. Your words give me hope." Another said, "Thank you for being brave. I feel less alone." In that moment, I realized something profound. The greatest ally is not always a single person. It is a community. It is the people who see you. Support you, lift you up. Sarah's friendship was a lifeline, but the connection to others like me was what made the healing real. That evening, back at the nest, I sent Sarah a message. "Thank you for being my light in the dark." She replied immediately, "You were always the light. You just needed to see it." And I did. Months passed since the storm with my family. Months filled with quiet mornings, focused workdays, and evenings surrounded by people who chose to be there because they cared, not out of obligation. I had built something new. Not just a business, but a life where respect and kindness were the foundation. The nest was thriving more than ever. Our client list grew steadily, and I had started mentoring young women who reminded me of the younger version of myself, uncertain, but determined. I lived in my apartment downtown, a cozy space filled with books, plants, and light. It was not grand, but it was mine. Every corner reflected who I was: strong, gentle, and independent. One Saturday morning, I met with Sarah and a few close friends for brunch at a small cafe. The air was crisp, the sunlight warm, and the conversation easy. "I cannot believe how far you have come," Sarah said, smiling across the table. "It feels like I am finally breathing," I replied. "Not just surviving, but truly living." We talked about future projects, travel plans, and the possibility of hosting a women's retreat next year. It was peaceful. It was real. I thought back to the old days, the family dinners where I sat, quietly invisible. The times I swallowed my feelings to keep the peace. The nights I cried alone, wondering if I would ever be enough. Now, those memories felt distant, like shadows fading in the morning light. I had learned to love myself in ways I never thought possible, not because I had money or success, because I had found peace. One evening, as I returned home from a client meeting, I paused to watch the sunset from my balcony. The city lights began to twinkle as the sky turned shades of pink and orange. I thought about my parents and Emily. I wondered if they ever understood what they had lost, but I did not feel anger anymore. I felt gratitude. Gratitude for the journey, for the pain that forced me to grow, for the people who stood by me, for the quiet strength that had always been inside me. Waiting to be claimed. Later that week, I received a call from a woman named Lisa, one of the young entrepreneurs I had mentored. "Claire, I just want to thank you," she said. "You helped me believe in myself when no one else did." Her voice was warm, hopeful. I smiled. That means everything. I realized then that my real fortune was not in money or property. It was in connection. In purpose. In living a life true to myself. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I am more than what they saw. I am more than their doubts and their dismissals. I am whole. I am enough. and I am free. And I knew, without a doubt, that this new and quiet life was exactly where I belonged. I often think back to the night when everything changed, when my father told me I could not sit at the table, when my family expected me to pay the bill without question. When the betrayal settled over me like a storm. At that moment, I was angry, hurt, confused, but I did not realize then that was only the beginning. The real journey started after. I said no. After I stood firm, after I chose myself. In those months and years that followed, I learned something powerful, that family is not just blood. It is respect. It is kindness. It is the courage to protect your heart from those who would use it. I learned that the fortune I had been chasing was not in dollars or deeds. It was in boundaries. In self-worth. In the strength to walk away from anyone who makes you feel small for so long. I thought success would heal me. That money, recognition, or a perfect life would fill the emptiness I felt. But real healing came when I stopped seeking approval, when I stopped shrinking to fit their expectations, when I built a life on my own terms. Now, I have a business that I am proud of, friends who see me, a life full of meaning. And most importantly, peace. I want you to know this. If you are listening because you feel unseen or unheard, you are not alone. If you are struggling to claim your worth in a family or place that dismisses you, please remember this. You have the right to say no. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to demand respect, and you have the power to create your own family chosen, loving and true. I hope my story gives you strength to stand tall, even when the world tries to make you small, because your real fortune is not what others give you. It is what you claim for yourself. Thank you for listening.